Hey everybody, welcome to The Bottom Line. Michael Noland here, and tonight, finally, my review and my thoughts on Led Zeppelin's second album, Led Zeppelin 2. You know, before I review an album and give my thoughts on a particular album, whether it's the Beatles or Led Zeppelin or even Queen, I really like to immerse myself into that music a day or two before I actually shoot that video. Well, I can tell you that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last 3 days, is listening to this album. Now, if you've seen my video on how I ranked Led Zeppelin's album, you may recall that I ranked this number 7 out of the 8 studio albums. And you know, when I say studio albums, I mean studio albums released when John Bonham was still alive. One of our viewers made the valid comment that actually Coda is every bit as much a studio album as the others. And we will be covering Coda, no doubt. And like I said, there is no such thing as a bad Led Zeppelin album as far as I'm concerned. But you know, I did rank this number 7 out of 8. And let me explain myself for just a bit here, okay? So basically, the way I look at this album is this is the Led Zeppelin's most necessary album that they ever made. Now, I'll give you an example of another necessary album in an equally talented band, the Beatles. The Beatles for Sale. Now, if you recall in my Beatles for Sale review, I revealed that it was probably my least favorite Beatle album, with the exception of a half album they released later. But what I mean by necessary, John Lennon, Paul McCartney needed this time to explore new ways of writing. Now, it's at this point that I want to diverge completely away from Beatles for Sale, because this is where any similarities between these two projects not only dissipate, but thoroughly disappear. You see, I know Led Zeppelin fans who consider their very best albums their first 2 albums, and I wouldn't argue with that. As I've stated before, no such thing as a bad Led Zeppelin album. You see, it's with this necessary album that the band members now have had a bit of time to get used to each other. There is a rhythm they've established, and they have some experience behind their belts, right? Don't forget, this is the second album they released in a year. The last time anybody was releasing 2 albums a year, 4 singles a year, were, of course, the Beatles. It's amazing to think that these guys started off their career at Beatle velocity, a velocity that the Beatles themselves gave up later on in their career. Okay, so the album starts off with perhaps one of Led Zeppelin's most famous songs, A Whole Lotta Love. The song starts off with Jimmy Page's guitar panned to the left with an echo that you can hear that reaches to the far right field. The band join in a more narrow stereo field. Now, just the very basic mix at this point later on in the song is so very important. Now, the whole band kicks ass right from the start. There's no doubt about that. But the star of the show in this song is Mr. Jimmy Page, no doubt. With searing, almost psychedelic, screaming riffs, this man rips us into a new realm of existence. You know, listening to these riffs in the middle of the song with Jimmy Page just ripping us out of reality and sending us somewhere else amazed me. Always has and always will. But you know, that's not the only great soloing in this song. It's his latter solo that really affected me. You see, it's in that solo the guitar tones that he achieved are absolutely brilliant. Okay, so let me explain what I mean by that. By good guitar tone, I listen for a tone that accentuates the mids as well as the extreme highs and any lows that might be playing in that solo, right? In this latter solo, you can hear his mids squeal as well as his very highs absolutely scream like a banshee. This solo's not just great because of the riffs, and the riffs are great. It's the tone that he achieves in this song. First song, second album, not bad, Zep. What's next up is What Is and What Should Never Be, and this is a very interesting track. Here we hear an interesting interplay between Jimmy and Bonzo. No. Here's where the interplay is between Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones. It's Bonzo who holds back and just plays a beat that covers over what they're doing. Very interesting and lends a very specific sound to this song. Now, as far as the lead vocals on this song, there's always been a debate as to what kind of special effects Robert Plant used on his vocals. Now, special effects boxes were out at this time, and maybe some of you know more about this specifically, but when I listen to this track, I hear flanging, and I'm not talking about a box or a flanger. I'm talking about flanging with the PH. In other words, someone putting their finger on the master tape while he sang his lead vocals. Now, that's what I hear as a recording engineer, but I can't be for sure on that, and if anybody has any information on that particular aspect of the song, please leave a comment and let the rest of us know. All right, next up, of course, is the Lemon song. You know, this is a very interesting track. Here we hear an almost three-way interplay between Page, Jones, and Bonham. And when you listen to this mix on headphones, you can tell they use several different reverbs to achieve a stereo spectrum here. I hear large hall reverb here, and I hear small room reverb here. This gives a very special blend to this song. But I gotta say, the main star on this track is John Paul Jones. Listen to the counterpoint type of bass playing he provides for us in this song. And at about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, he takes it over. He's the star of the show. A wonderful track. Okay, so now it's in the next song, Thank You, that the band treads a bit of familiar territory here. Right at the outset, we hear that almost 18th century organ from John Paul Jones. And just like the last album, Jimmy Page is relegated to playing at first acoustic guitar. But that's about as close as they get to treading familiar territory that's closer to the first album here. A more careful listen, you can tell that almost 18th century organ at times sounds like a Farfisa organ from an early 60s hit. And Bonzo is nowhere near as pedestrian as he would have been in a similar approach. He just trips his way through this entire song. And of course, just to be different than their approach in the last album, Jimmy also plays some great electric guitar, with Robert Plant very carefully not treading on the looseness and counterplay between his bandmates. The song is fabulous and one of my favorite tracks on the album. Next up, Heartbreaker, where Led Zeppelin continues to tread new ground. Listen to Bonzo as the song starts. It sounds like he's not playing with Jimmy, yet we've discussed in the past that's exactly what he does. Often it is the interplay between Jimmy Page and Bonzo that creates that special rhythmic sensation you get only with Led Zeppelin. But a few bars in, you find out actually he is playing with Jimmy Page. He's just playing at the beginning what Jimmy Page will be playing in a few moments. What a wonderful illusion this creates. All right, so right where the song might become boring, Led Zeppelin, great songwriters that they are, use an old songwriter's trick, change of key. And it's interesting, they changed the key. You would think they would go up. Well, the change of key results in Plant's voice going to a much lower register. And I gotta tell you, it just sounds so right. Okay, so now there's been criticism from some circles that this is a song that shows Jimmy Page being sloppy. Ain't no such animal where I come from. No, I'm serious. That's just a bunch of BS. You know, a careful listen of this solo is an excellent example of what I've already said in past videos concerning Jimmy Page. Only Jimi Hendrix could possibly match Page for taking the kind of chances, not only live, but in the studio and use those tracks. You know, anybody who says this man is a sloppy guitar player needs to go back and relearn guitar. He played perfect all those years in the studio to produce absolutely perfect pop records, and then he puts together what is really, for the first time in his life, his first band. And that's at the point where he's gonna just start playing sloppy, right? That for some unknown reason, he can't play guitar. I got news for you. He ain't playing it wrong. You're just listening to it wrong. As a matter of fact, this solo in this song is impeccable. Now, if there is a throwback song to the first album, Livin Loving Maid would have to be it. I don't think their whole heart and soul were into this song. Like I said, there's no such thing as a real bad Led Zeppelin song, but at closer to 2.5 minutes than it is to 3 minutes, you almost feel like this was a filler song, you know, to give the second side a proper length. Now, I know as soon as I say that, I'm gonna get comments, "Oh, are you kidding, man? That's my favorite Led Zeppelin song." And if I've stepped on your dreams a bit, I'm sorry. Next up, the iconic Ramble On, and probably the most forward-thinking song on the album. Here is the first introduction to the Led Zeppelin we would see in Led Zeppelin 3 and especially on Led Zeppelin 4, Zozo, 4 Symbols, what else is it called? Oh my goodness, I can't remember. It's in this song we are fully introduced to Middle Earth. The whole band on this song seems to magically meld together, and Jimmy Page's solos, best on the album if you ask me. Here, the wizard arrives, and here, the wizard weaves a magic spell. This is the first song that gives us permission to reinterpret everything else we've heard by Led Zeppelin. And if you know what I mean by that, then you've seen a couple of my videos. But basically, as I've said before, once I heard 1 or 2 or 3 of their songs mention Middle Earth, all songs became Middle Earth oriented for me. For some strange and exotic reason, I don't know. But man, the band just took on such a mythical quality for me at that point. There was no going back. Next up, Moby Dick, John Bonham, world's greatest rock drummer, the best, bar none. End of discussion. The album ends with Bring It On Home, another curiously forward-thinking track. This is almost where is that confounded bridge? The song starts off with Plant's voice, again, I think, being actually manually flanged as he records it. But like many of their songs, what starts off slow often ends up heavy. And Led Zeppelin certainly comes full on strong on this last song, the final track of Led Zeppelin 2. All right, guys, I hope I gave you something to think about. I want to thank you very much for watching the video. I've been so busy putting out videos that sometimes it takes me up to 12, maybe 18 hours to actually get to the comments. But I read every single one of them, believe me. And so far, I've managed to respond to every single one that I've read. So if you haven't gotten a comment back or a thumbs up on your comment, it just means that I've been so busy here in the studio, either shooting or editing, I haven't gotten to the comments, but I always carve that time out. Of course, you may be seeing some names here in front of me as usual. Those are the names of our brand new subscribers. Our subscribership has gone through the roof for a channel our size. I want to welcome all of you on board, and I want to thank our viewers in general. Our viewership is now past 30,000. We're on our way to whatever next level we're going to achieve. It would never have happened unless somebody was sharing our videos. I want to thank you so much. And if you know anybody who likes this kind of content, please go ahead and share our videos. And of course, as always, if you've been considering subscribing to the channel, it is so easy. Hit that subscribe to the tribe, then hit that top bell notification, and you'll be notified of all future videos. All right, guys, that's about it for the video tonight. This is The Bottom Line. I'm Michael Noland, and I'll see you in the next video.